Palmer on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Holding down the middle of the day. Live from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studios. This is Hunt Palmer.
Welcome in. Hunt Palmer coming to you from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studio downtown in the capital city on a Tuesday. Casey Gaines and Taylor Sharp back there on the ones and twos. Hope your Tuesday is going well. Big matchup in the PMAC tonight for LSU as Florida comes to town. Chat a little Saints with Sharif Ishak in hour number 2. Glenn West with us in 30 minutes talking Tigers. And, of course, the college football season is now behind us, and we will get to all of that. Very much looking forward to it. Hang in with us until 3 o'clock. It's the Hunt Palmer Show here on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Final score last night was 1,000,000-0. If you listened to my show yesterday, I said I thought TCU would hang around. I was impressed with how they did that against Michigan. I thought Georgia's secondary could be thrown on and that TCU may have the personnel to do that. And then I thought Georgia would win the game, but it would be fairly competitive. That was obviously grossly incorrect. The more accurate depiction of what was to come in that game last night came from my wife, who doesn't know anything about football or basketball or baseball or soccer or golf or tennis or any sport. But she walked into the house last night, and I'm watching pregame, and she sees the logos for TCU and Georgia on the bottom of the screen, and she goes, wait, TCU and Georgia play for the national championship? And I said, yeah. Comes up about an hour. She goes, wait, they're allowed to play on the same level? And while that question doesn't really make any sense unless you're insinuating that TCU is an FCS team, it drives home the point that Georgia and TCU were not on the same level, quote unquote. And that was very much evident last night. And so I spent a lot of time last night and this morning considering how I wanted to approach this game. And it kind of boils down to this. Georgia clearly had the best team in the country this year. They were the best team from start to finish. They're the worthy national champs. What happened last night was a little bit of an anomaly. 62-7 is not going to be the result every time those two teams play. Georgia's going to win 97 out of 100, I think. But 62-7, it was just one of those nights. TCU turned the ball over 3 times. They needed to get a couple of turnovers. Stetson played great against Kentucky and Georgia. He didn't play all that well. I don't care as much about 62-7 as much as I do Georgia and TCU playing for the national championship. College football is the least equitable sport that I follow closely. There are haves and there are have-nots. This is something you've heard me say as long as I've had a microphone. Thankfully, I was born into a family that graduated from a have. I went to a school that is a have. I live in Baton Rouge and cover a have that I care about very deeply. That's fortunate for me. Most college football fans aren't in that position. The haves are usually going to beat the have-nots. Georgia's certainly a have. TCU is a have-not. But the have-nots can beat the haves on a given day. TCU beat Michigan and did it with some breaks. Yeah, Michigan got inside the 5 twice and didn't score. Yeah, TCU had 2 pick sixes. Oh, by the way, the DBs, broke on the ball and converted them to pick sixes. But it can happen on a given day. But when the haves play very well, they play their A game, they play their best, the have-nots don't have a chance. The haves are the only entities, only programs that can create a monster. Let me give you some examples. LSU, which is a have, gets Joe Burrow. What was the result of that? A 15-0 freight train running right through the middle of college football, running right through Tuscaloosa, Atlanta, Oklahoma, Clemson, Florida, Auburn. LSU with Joe Burrow, that's a monster. Auburn gets Cam Newton. Was the rest of that team awesome? No, they had a bunch of 4 stars, not a bunch of pros. How'd that work out? That's a monster. Clemson gets those recruiting classes, and they get Deshaun Watson, Trevor Lawrence, two guys who are Pro Bowl caliber quarterbacks in the NFL. They're monsters. They win championships. Texas Tech gets Patrick Mahomes. They lost the Texas Bowl by 50. Baylor gets Robert Griffin III, best player that school's ever seen. They didn't win the league. When the haves get it cooking, they can create a monster. The have-nots can't do it. So there's no way to fix that because there's no spending limit. The haves spend money on stadiums and facilities and coaches and analysts and NIL deals, and the amount of investment and passion that's poured into it just dwarfs the have-nots. And you can't fix it. So when you get a match with a national championship against a have or a have-not, the have's going to win. Is that good or bad for college football? Here's my answer to that. It's bad in the national championship game. I don't want to watch TCU in the national championship game anymore. I was different 24 hours ago. Thought they had a chance. I don't want to watch Washington in the national championship. They got blown out in the semi. I don't want to watch Michigan State in the championship. They got beat by 1,000,000 in the semi a couple years ago. The championship spotlight is for the haves. But I don't think it's a good thing to boil college football down entirely to the haves. Everyone deserves a chance to lace it up in September and go play and have some dreams. I think if you boil this thing down to 15 teams, that's not as interesting. What's the answer here? How do we keep it interesting for everybody? Keep dreams intact, keep passion intact, keep interest outside of the tiniest pocket possible while understanding that the haves need the spotlight at the end. We're getting it. 12-team playoff. 12-team playoff allows for the hope of the have-not to have a miraculous season, to win tight games against rivals like TCU did all year long, and to get into the playoff and play on a national spotlight against a have. It allows that dream for Mississippi State and Oregon State and Texas Tech and Syracuse. And they can get into a 12-team playoff. And that doesn't, in my opinion, increase their odds to win a national championship. In fact, it decreases it. And that's fine, because I don't need to see them play for a national championship. I watched it last night. But you can put them on the stage where they can come up with one day where they can beat Michigan or Bama or LSU or USC or Clemson. Inevitably, it's going to end. But you give them that hope in September. You allow them that hope through November. They get their shot. If they get dusted, they get dusted. We move on. But they're probably not going to get to the end. The haves will get to the end. Is there any situation that I can look at and say that this theory applies? Oh, there is. We give North Dakota State the basketball floor against Duke on Thursday of the NCAA tournament. We let Southern go play Gonzaga a few years ago. You've earned that. Go get it. And you might win one here or there. But by the time we get to the end, we've got the haves. Duke's there, and Carolina's there, and Kansas is there, and Kentucky's there. And every once in a while, somebody might win a playoff game or two. But when we get to the end, we have the haves. Georgia was on the ropes against Missouri at one point this year. Georgia was on the ropes against Ohio State. That's a have, but you see what I'm saying? I think the sport will be at its best when we allow teams that run through their season undefeated like TCU did a shot. I don't necessarily need to get into massive semantics battles about TCU at 12-1 against a 2-loss Tennessee who got blown out but has 2 really good wins against Alabama and LSU, or a 2-loss Alabama team that got beat on the last play of the game but it's probably better than you. You can have those discussions if you want, but at some point, the games have to matter in September, October, and November. And if Bama's losses don't matter because they have more 5-stars and they're going to have 2 of the top 3 picks, and you don't want to watch TCU play anymore, so you have to put Bama in, why is anyone playing? Then you only have 9 teams that anyone's going to look at. And there may be some of you that say, well, that's fine with me. It's not fine with me. I want more than 9 teams that matter. I'm okay with TCU mattering and then getting their shot on the biggest stage. The same way Southern Miss will get a shot on the biggest stage of college basketball when we know they're not getting to the Final Four. And maybe TCU beats Georgia in round 1 of the 12-teamer. They're probably going to get beat by Clemson or LSU the next week. And we'll have halves under the lights. Just like the NFL playoff. You don't have any have-nots there. But when we get to the end, we want the halves. That's what I drew from last night. It was a boring game. It was never competitive. Herb Street and Fowler are trying to fill time, and I'm sitting here going, what about the state of this sport that I cover, that we all love so much? What does this mean? I don't think it means TCU go sit in the corner starting on Labor Day. I think it means, okay, what's the best way to make sure that Ohio State and Bama and Georgia are playing in the national championship game instead of TCU or Michigan State or Washington? Because I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I think those have-nots are going to figure it out and they're going to go towards the top. But I do want them to be able to have a full stadium and feel like beating their rivals important. And we'll talk about the new Big 12 at a different time because that's a discussion for a different time. But the best way to do this is to expand the playoff, let Tennessee in this year, let Bama in this year. Maybe LSU does get a seat at the table this year, even though they had 3 losses, but won their division, had a couple good wins. And then we go play. I don't think it improves the odds for the lesser teams to win the national championship. I think it actually does lessen the juggernaut's odds of winning the national championship because you have to win more games. But I think it's the best way. I'm very excited for the expansion of college football. It has become so regionalized and so minimalized. And you look at the pocket, 15 of the last 16 national championships have gone from Clemson, South Carolina to Baton Rouge, Louisiana, into Austin. The only one outside of that is Ohio State. You're never going to totally equalize the playing field. As I said, it's the most inequitable sport that we follow. But I think the 12-team playoff is very much a positive, and that's what I've taken from it. That's the state of college football after last night. What does it mean for Georgia? What is Kirby Smart building? What's Stetson Bennett's legacy? What's happening moving forward? That's all next on the Hunt Palmer Show.
Hunt Palmer on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Love LWCC. Love my chats with Seth over there, with Kelly, with Drake. They're such a shining light in Louisiana. They're a Louisiana company that works with Louisiana companies, and they want to help our state. They want to celebrate our state. They want to elevate those who do great work in our state. That's why they started the Champions of Louisiana campaign. And we tell you about a different one every single month. This month, Hunters for the Hungry is LWCC's Champion of Louisiana. It's a nonprofit that was founded by a group of local hunters to share the game and fish they harvest each year with the needy. And since they started in 1994, they've expanded throughout the state. They now partner with all 5 major food banks in Louisiana. They've got some great programs like Clean Out Your Freezer Day. That's in September every year. You know the sportsmen are going to head out and go make their kills, catch their fish. So you got to have room in the freezer. So they all clean out their freezers and drop them all at the 35 drop locations where those frozen products are properly packaged and given to those in need. What an awesome event that is. Just one of the great things that Hunters for the Hungry does. And that's why we want to celebrate them and elevate them like Louisiana, LWCC does. If you know of a great champion of Louisiana, go to lwcc.com/champions and nominate someone like Hunters for the Hungry to be a champion of Louisiana so we can tell their story right here on the Hunt Palmer Show. Hunters for the Hungry, January's Champion of Louisiana, presented by LWCC.
Our listeners fire off their opinions on the jimsfirearms.net hotline at 499-1045. Keep listening for your next chance to shoot us your thoughts with the jimsfirearms.net hotline on 1045 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Only available at the Acura Season of Performance.
This winter, visit your local Acura dealer for attractive offers on the MDX.
All right, let's say ah.
Where'd my spotlight go?
Super weird, but we can take care of it.
Join me, Jimmy Out and Mike Delicano for the Tuesday edition of Game Time presented by Bet Rivers. We're at Dozy Place on Government Street in the heart of Mid-City. Game Time presented by Bet Rivers, 6 to 8 p.m. on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
This is Hunt Palmer on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Last night wasn't just about TCU, obviously. There was another team on the field, and they did a pretty good job. Kirby Smart has built something really impressive. You're talking about a team that after 3 quarters of play was up 42-3 on Oregon in the opener. Won that game 49-3. You're talking about a team that took the field against what was at the time number 1 Tennessee, and at halftime they were up 24-6. They added to that, went 27-6 after 3 quarters, and it totally put the clamps on a Vol offense that was high flying at that point. Dropped 50 on Bama, just absolutely annihilated LSU. Was really rolling people, and Georgia put them in a sleeper hold in the rain in Athens. You're talking about a team that went to the SEC championship game against LSU, and it was not competitive at any point in that game. It was a total whitewashing from start to finish. And I realized they gave up 500 passing yards, but they were also up 42-17. They were up 50-23 on LSU. And they're a team that had the ability to beat the brakes off anybody they came across. Now, they didn't do it always. They didn't do it against Missouri. They didn't do it against Kentucky. They messed around in the first half against Georgia Tech, and Ohio State had a kick. So it's not infallible, but it's a great, great team. And this 2-year run by Kirby Smart and Georgia is really, really impressive. And in my opinion, they have taken over the mantle as the dominant program in college football. I don't think you would have to argue that too strongly when you look at a team that's won 2 national championships and played for a third and went to overtime back a couple of years ago. So he's got it rolling over there. And there are probably some people that are turning on Georgia a little bit, don't want to hear about it. They're kind of getting the Alabama treatment maybe from a national level. I'm not even close to that because they've only beaten me once, and we didn't have a lot to play for in that one. So I'm not close to that personally, but they're going to get there. And because Kirby is young, he's incredibly motivated, and he's built something incredibly special there that's not only in the wins and losses, which are very obvious. It's not only in the draft picks, which are very obvious, statistics. It's the fact that they're doing this by recruiting 4- and 5-star players and keeping them around. They're not going to the transfer portal and grabbing a bunch of guys. They're recruiting high schoolers and developing them. And that is lost at this point, just about anywhere in college football. I'm all for playing by the rules. I'm thrilled that Brian Kelly's gone and gotten a ton of corners and defensive linemen and all that. That's great. But Georgia's not relying on that. They're just going to recruit and develop better than you, and they certainly have. I think a ton has been said about Stetson Bennett, so I'm not going to exactly shed brand new light on anything here, but I continue to watch him play and question why we have to bring up walk-on and not an NFL starter. And I know one of his touchdown passes last night was to a wide-open guy that was a total coverage bust and nobody was there. That happens sometimes. But he has plenty of arm. He makes a lot of tough throws, makes good reads. He's fast. He looks really good to me. I don't think you have to be 6'4" and run a 4.3 40 to be really good at football. He's short. I got it. But he doesn't look like Kellen Moore's ball at Boise State coming out of there. He rips it pretty good. Have you seen him turn the corner, outrun defensive ends? Like, he looks really good to me. And his place in college football, in my opinion, is pretty safe. Are there other quarterbacks that could have taken that Georgia roster and won? Yeah. But that instance remains in a lot of cases. A lot of the great players and productive players and decorated players in college football played with some other good players. The Burrow guy had some pretty good receivers. He had a first-round running back. Couple of starters on the NFL line. Now, Burrow's awesome. He's the best player I've ever seen. But he did have some good players around him. And so did Stetson. So I think that he's probably at this point still underappreciated for how good he played and what he did. And we'll see if Georgia's able to just flip that right over and bring the next guy in. We'll see if Alabama will flip that over and bring the next guy in. But you look at the two perceived powers in the SEC, and they got to replace some pretty big shoes at quarterback. It's not going to be just so easy to toss somebody right in there for Stetson Bennett. It's not going to be so easy to toss somebody right in there for Bryce Young. I realize that Tua had a pretty good career. I realize that Jalen Hurts won some games. But that makes things a little bit more interesting. But I still think if you're looking at the top of the college football world, the standard in the sport, Georgia is it to me. And now you're going to see that fan base go from one that was starving for a championship for 40 years. I kept saying it. I thought the hungriest fan bases entering last year were Michigan, who hadn't beaten Ohio State in forever and ever and ever. Were Georgia, who had knocked on the door. Rick had a couple of good teams, won the league one time. Stafford and them had a really good shot at things in 2007. Couldn't quite get there. Kirby got to the Rose Bowl, got to the final, lost it overtime. It was Michigan, it was Georgia, and it was A&M, who would spend all this money on facilities and had the Manziel buzz and got Jimbo Fisher. And I thought those were the three hungriest fan bases. Michigan still got it. We'll see what Jim Harbaugh decides to do. Texas A&M's a story of its own. Now Georgia's an entirely different animal. Now Kirby sat in the belly of the beast for this thing and watched Saban get teams ready to roll again after winning a championship. So he's seen it attempted to be done. It doesn't always work. It's pretty hard to win 30 in a row. But they're the standard at this point. In Tennessee and Florida, y'all can have them. We've dealt with Bama for 15 years every year. And we'll see what the new scheduling brings up. But as an LSU fan, I'm sitting here going, okay, I think our team's pretty good. If we run into Georgia and Atlanta, that may be a huge game for us like it could have been this year to get into the playoff. Maybe one where we don't have to win it. Ask TCU. Sometimes you don't have to win that game. Ask Ohio State. Sometimes you don't have to win that game. They can have them over in the East. But that was really, really impressive. And then if you were still watching in the fourth quarter, I don't know why you would have been. I actually was for no reason. I was listening to a Jay Johnson interview, interestingly enough, as I was watching the fourth quarter of the game. But they had some true freshmen coming off the edge, taking the ball at running back. They got some guys still locked and loaded, ready to play. I don't think talent's going to be an issue for them next year. I realize they lost 15 to the draft, and they're going to lose a few more. Jalen Carter's already got his graphic out that he's going to the draft. I don't think he did that this morning. I think that may have been previously created. And we'll talk about this and take it or leave it. It's actually in there at the end of the show. But Stetson Bennett didn't show up to the press conference today. It's like a 9 a.m. Pacific press conference. I don't think I'm going to make that one. Sorry. If you remember, Burrow did the Pardon My Take interview in the team hotel the next morning. Probably could not have passed the field sobriety test at that point. To the riches go the spoils. And Georgia, certainly the riches of college football. They're the national champions for the second consecutive year. Now we turn our eyes towards the following season where LSU has got the fifth best odds to win the national championship. Hopefully we're in that discussion as we enter the season next year. That makes things a lot more fun around these parts. Tigers with a big basketball game tonight. They got the Florida Gators in town. Transfer portal still buzzing. Glenn West covers LSU for Go247. He's going to join us next to talk about it on the Hunt Palmer Show.
This is Hunt Palmer. In times of need, get a full list of phone numbers, websites, and other important emergency information on the Demco Stormwatch page at 1045ESPN.com.
There it is, the extra mile, on the border of expected and extraordinary for those willing to go further, like vans customized for work or play, with safety and tech to keep you connected. Supported by a 5-star sales, service, and finance team. And backed by the 1-star you know. So go the extra mile. It's never crowded because so few have what it takes to go there. Mercedes-Benz Vans.
Time doesn't stop, and the world keeps spinning. Community, culture, and communications, the powerful circle that connects us together. We're creating the next evolution, a network built for every possibility, moving faster than ever before, streaming us forward into the future. And the revolution is closer than you think. RTC, ETEL, and Vision are now Rev. New name, same company.
This winter, meet the heroes of performance. Only available at the Acura Season of Performance.
This winter, visit your local Acura dealer for attractive offers on the Integra.
Louisiana. It's a place defined by culture, by pride, by passion, by people who do more than love this place. They celebrate it, elevate it, champion it, They are the individuals who embody what makes Louisiana great. The companies that make Louisiana a better place to work and live. The nonprofits leading transformational change in our communities. Champions of Louisiana are all around us, and LWCC is proud to celebrate them because we've always been Louisiana loyal, supporting the workers, the innovators, the change agents of this great place we call home. Who are the champions around you? Together, we can share their stories. Together, we can help our home state thrive. Together, we are Louisiana loyal. Always.
I've been doing business with Luba for 25 years. They're dependable, trustworthy. It's just the attention to detail with our clients.
Our folks have years and years of experience. They're highly trained professionals, but many companies have that asset. What I'd like to think makes Luba a bit different is that we use those talents in a way that truly is dedicated to serving the needs of the folks who depend on us.
Have you ever heard the tale of the misunderstood bull? A menacing beast who was born to float. A force of nature. The embodiment of grace. Quite grand, yet quiet and nimble.
NFL Wild Card Weekend. Tune in Saturday when the 49ers host the Seahawks at 3:30 p.m., immediately followed by the Jaguars and Chargers at 7:15. Then on Sunday, the Bills host the Dolphins at noon, the Vikings host the Giants at 3:30, and the Bengals host the Ravens at 7:15. Right here on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
You're listening to Hunt Palmer on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Out of the Jim's Firearms Hotline, Glenn West is there. Glenn West, of course, of Go247, joins us each and every Tuesday. Glenn, how are you?
I'm doing great, Hunt. How are you?
I'm doing well. Let's talk some football first before we get to basketball. Since we last spoke, a lot of transfer portal activity, a lot in the secondary over the last 3-4 days. What is your overall thought on the talent level that this roster is going to put out there in the opener against Florida State?
Yeah, I mean, if we're talking strictly the secondary, I think they've done a tremendous job of kind of retooling that group. I mean, obviously you bring in a really stellar freshman class headlined by Toviano and a couple of those guys, but they've really, I think, hit the transfer portal out of the park this year again. They've added, I think, 8 new players at this time with potentially more on the way. And their latest guy, Deuce Chestnut, is a former freshman All-American at Syracuse. He's played a lot of games, over 20 games over his last 2 years up north of Syracuse, and adds to a group that includes Denver Harris, a former 5-star. There's just Zy Alexander, the transfer from Southeastern. He's a long, lengthy kind of corner and a guy who can really compete for playing time early. So they've done a really nice job of retooling this cornerback room, and I think it could turn into one of the strengths of this team, to be honest with you.
We were looking at the running back spot about a week ago, and you were kind of looking at guys that were here, who's going to go to the draft, transfer portal stuff, and kind of all quiet over there. What do you expect this running back room to look like next year?
Yeah, I mean, there's not a ton of clarity right now at what that room could look like. You bring in the 2 freshmen, Caleb Jackson and Trey Holly, 2 Louisiana guys. You add that to the 4 that are already here at this moment. I mean, that's a pretty crowded room right now, 6. And you expect Josh Williams to continue to carry a heavy load next year as kind of a senior back who really established himself this last season. I think there's some decisions to be made still with John Emery. Armani Goodwin's another name to keep an eye on. A guy that LSU trusts and would love to have him out on the field. He just hasn't been able to stay healthy his first couple of years. So there's some decisions still to be made in that room. I think regardless of what happens, if you lose a guy or 2, you're still pretty strong at running back. If you lose 2, maybe look at the portal for an extra pair of legs to help you in the running back room. But I think regardless of what happens, LSU has a pretty strong foundation returning next year.
Are you surprised no announcement's been made about Garrett Nussmeier, Walker Howard's future to this point?
No, I don't think so. I think if you kind of read between the lines of what Coach Kelly was saying, after the bowl game, it sounds like the program expects both of those two to be on the roster through spring. Now, everything can happen after the spring, but despite Coach Kelly saying that this is Jaden's job right now, I think there's sensibility in Garrett and Walker sticking around through the spring because you never really know what can happen with other programs after the spring. So if there's other areas, other teams that they see that they could go in and make an impact on after the spring, then that's something that they could decide to do. But I think right now the opportunity to come back and compete and continue to develop as quarterbacks in a familiar area and a familiar roster that's returning, I think is a pretty good option for those guys so far.
Glenn West, our guest at Go247. We'll switch gears to basketball. Tigers tonight in the PMAC 6 o'clock tip against Florida. What do you make of LSU's last 2 outings in Lexington and then on Saturday in College Station?
Yeah, certainly a lot more positives to take out of that Kentucky loss than the A&M loss. There were that Saturday loss at A&M was probably about as bad as they've looked all season. Some real careless turnovers. They got obliterated in the paint. I think 42-10 was the score in the paint. So that's just not a winning recipe for success there, especially if you're an LSU team that really depends on having efficiency in their half-court sets. They have to take advantage of every opportunity they get in the half court because they just haven't been as efficient as other teams have been this year. So I kind of chalk the Saturday loss up to just a really poor performance. Sounds like LSU is really chomping at the bit to get back out there tonight after kind of a disappointing performance. But overall, I think if you look at these 3 SEC games so far in a vacuum, you've got to be at least a little bit happy with the start and just the way that they've competed in 2 of those 3 games. I think really leads you to believe that they can be a competitive group in SEC play this year.
How would you handle the point guard position moving forward?
It's a tough question. I would say Cam Hayes has still probably got a stranglehold on that job right now. Justice Hill's really struggling right now as well. You kind of tell they're moving him a little bit more off ball, and Cam Hayes is the guy who's really bringing the ball up and operating the offense. I don't know if they make a decision to put Trey Hannibal in the starting lineup. I think they like what he can do off the bench, and it's just a nice little punch that he can give the Tigers off the bench. So I'm not saying that they're going to bench Justice Hill, but they certainly need more out of him. You just need more offensive creation. The fact that KJ Williams has only gotten 6 and 7 shots in 2 of the 3 SEC games, that's just not a recipe for LSU to have much success. I think they got to play more through him. Coach McMahon talked yesterday about how he's a willing passer, but they need to give him touches pretty much on every possession if they want to be a successful offense.
I was about to go nuts in the first half with the lack of touches to KJ Williams in College Station. That's just indefensible in any way to me. So as far as Adam Miller goes, he's made 10 threes in the last 2 games. You think he's kind of worked his way out of it?
Yeah, I think so, and I think they've done they've run some nice sets for him to get open looks off screens. He's much more of a catch and shoot guy. I'm not sure he's a guy that you really want, shooting a ton off the dribble. He can take it to the rim and try to get, shots that way, but he's really a catch and shoot kind of guy. And right now, I think he's starting to get back into a little bit of a groove. And when shooters go into slumps like that, I think it's always best to just let them work through it. If they're putting in the effort and they're putting in the work, those shots are going to start to fall eventually. So that was probably a positive sign out of last week's 2 losses, was him getting back on track with the 3 ball.
How big is tonight's game?
Yeah, this is a big one. You go back on the road again to Alabama, and so on Saturday, and so if you lose this game, you're potentially staring at a 1-4 start to SEC play if they're not careful. So they've really got to, I think, take care of business tonight. Florida, Castleton's a guy who's really given LSU fits the last couple of years. I'll be interested to see what kind of wrinkles they throw at him. He's still an elite shot blocker and rim protector, so that's an area where LSU struggled to really finish at the basket this season. So it's going to be a really important matchup for LSU to get a hold of Castleton, and obviously they got Alex Fudge there now too. It's a kind of fun story, him coming back to Baton Rouge after his 1.5 years here. But yeah, this is an extremely important game. You got to take care of business at home if you're LSU, and this is a team that in Florida that's it's a gettable game.
How do they deal with Castleton? Sheboy obviously hurt him really bad on the glass.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're going to have to certainly throw a couple of guys at him, especially on the defensive glass, is where they're really going to have to make sure that he's boxed out on every possession. He's just so long. He's not really a big guy. He's just really long and lengthy. He's like a twig out there, but it just really makes a lot of stuff happen at the rim. So I think you're going to see Fountain on him some. You're going to see KJ on him some. You got to mix up your coverages with him and make life as difficult as possible in the post for Florida, because they are one of the teams that really likes to get into the post and really finish at the rim. So that's going to be huge for LSU's defense.
Glenn, we appreciate the time. See you in the PMAC.
All right, Hunt. Thanks.
Glenn West, Go 247. He's the senior writer over there for all your recruiting and LSU sports coverage. Glenn West is your guy. We appreciate him hanging out with us each and every Tuesday. I want to remind you to join former Tigers Aaron and Austin Nola for the 2023 Strikeout ALS Bowling event. The Nola brothers are teaming up once again to help raise critical funds and awareness to the fight against ALS. The 2023 Strikeout ALS will be held at Red Stick Social next Thursday. It's the 19th from 5 to 10 p.m. You can buy tickets at als.org/strikeoutals. I'll be there putting my bowling skills to the test. Once upon a time, I was decent at bowling. Turns out when you live with a bunch of law students right out of school and they don't study until like the last month of their semester, they just go bowling every week. So you go with them. And we went every Wednesday, I think it was, at like 9 o'clock and bowled until like 1 in the morning every single night, every single week. And we got decent, but no longer. That was a long time ago, and I'm awful now. So we'll see. We're going to strike out ALS and hopefully bowl a few strikes in the meantime. We come back, get you caught up on what's going on in the SEC basketball tonight. Hour number 2 is coming at you pretty quickly. I'll give you a preview of the Florida Gators. Some really familiar faces that I found really interesting on this Florida team that I don't know that I realized until I went back and did some research. But we'll talk about Florida at the top of hour number 2, LSU transfer portal information, some guys that they're looking at, some visits that are coming in hour number 2 as well as Sharif Ishak talking Pels and Saints at 2:30. Don't go anywhere. It's the Hunt Palmer Show.
Hunt Palmer on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
One Bath and Closets. OneBathAndClosets.com is the website. David Duvall and his team have been at it for 30 years. Think about your closet right now. If it's super cluttered, or maybe there's a situation where you wake up before whoever you share a bed with and the lights are out and you're shining your phone trying to find stuff in your closet. They can help you. Whether you need shoe racks, baskets, belts, scarves, storage, mirrors, cupboards, drawers, doors, even lighting. Like I said, they can help you to customize a closet that fits your exact needs. Whether you need a bunch of compartments for shoes, you need some lighting to help you out in the morning getting dressed, you just need more space, or you don't know what you need. David Duvall and his team can help you out with your closets. They can do the same with your bathrooms. How much better would your bathroom look if you knocked out that tub, put in a gorgeous walk-in shower? The tub-to-shower conversions are very, very popular over at One Bath and Closets. And you don't have to call 6 people to get this job done. David Duvall is a one-stop shop. One call, one contractor, One Bath and Closets. You can head to the website, onebathandclosets.com. They'll do it right the first time and leave the competition behind. One Bath and Closets at onebathandclosets.com.
Our listeners fire off their opinions on the jimsfirearms.net hotline at 499-1045. Keep listening for your next chance to shoot us your thoughts with the jimsfirearms.net hotline on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Bayou Ford has $10,000 off MSRP on a new 2022 Ford F-150, plus no payments for 90 days and 2.9% APR for 72 months. All new Bayou vehicles come with a 1 million mile powertrain warranty. If you need sales or service, the crew at Bayou Ford is going to do right by you.
ServiceMaster Elite create clean, disinfected work environments. As a local business, we take pride in serving the New Orleans and Baton Rouge areas. Our cleaning protocols follow CDC and OSHA standards for healthcare settings, offices, senior living, restaurants, and industrial plants. Contact Service Master Elite to get your operation ready for reopening with germ disinfection cleaning. Service Master Elite, the trusted choice in professional cleaning since 1996.
This is a house call. This is a follow-up appointment. This is a diabetes checkup. This isn't just more convenient care, it's more advanced care. This is innovating healthcare at Louisiana's #1 hospital, Ochsner.
There it is, the extra mile, on the border of expected and extraordinary for those willing to go further, like vans customized for work or play, with safety and tech to keep you connected. Supported by a 5-star sales, service, and finance team, and backed by the 1-star you know. So go the extra mile. It's never crowded, because so few have what it takes to go there. Mercedes-Benz Vans.
Eli's always been into grilling. It took us a while to see it, but the signs were there.
What are you doing, Eli? I knew grilling was my thing. I have been talking about it throughout my career.
Happy with the results?
I am. Got the new grill from barbecueguys.com. It performed great.
My advice, as I always told my boys,
do more of what you were born to do.
Barbecue Guys, for those who were born to grill.
You want cheese on your burger, Pops?
I'll take a little cheese.
This winter, meet the heroes of performance. Only available at the Acura Season of Performance.
This winter, visit your local Acura dealer for attractive offers.
Matt Moscona inviting you to join us for Tuesday's AFR. We're recapping the Natty. Sean Salisbury joins us, and we'll preview LSU Florida in hoops. It's Tuesday's AFR. Join us from 3 to 6, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
This is Hunt Palmer on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
I've been a sales rep in my day. I'm not going to try to sell you tonight's SEC basketball slate. It is not awesome. You've got some one-sided affairs with some of the better teams in the league. You got some lower-profile teams in the league playing. LSU Florida is an interesting game, and I will dive deep into that one at the top of hour number 2. As I mentioned previously, Florida's got some names that are very familiar to LSU that'll be showing up at the PMAC tonight. And that's an interesting game. First-year head coaches trying to set the foundation, trying to win some early SEC games. And it should be competitive. It's a 2-point spread. Florida's favored. But there are some whopper spreads in the SEC tonight. It starts at 6 o'clock on the Deuce up in Rupp. South Carolina is probably the worst team in the league. They will play Kentucky. It's a get-well spot for Kentucky, who is 1-2 in league play. The one win being a nail-biter up against LSU. South Carolina's coming off being absolutely humiliated by Tennessee over the weekend. So Kentucky is a 19.5-point favorite up at Rupp. The natives are restless in Rupp, and I have talked about this for a couple of weeks now here on this show, and it may be a theme that moves forward. I don't expect any issues with the Cats tonight against South Carolina. They're better at every position significantly and should get on the right track. But still, I feel like based on the Twitter reactions I've seen, Matt Jones and some of his, things are not great in Lexington right now, but they ought to be just fine tonight against South Carolina. Interstate rivalry, which should be very one-sided again tonight, up in Thompson Bowling Arena, up in the Tommy Bowl. It'll be Vanderbilt, who is 8-7 on the season, taking on number 5 Tennessee, who's 13-2, 3-0 in league play. This is an 18-point spread, and the reason Tennessee spreads are so big, they just simply don't allow teams to score. They're holding everybody under 60. They held South Carolina under 50. they are very, very difficult to score against, and Vanderbilt at times has been brutal on the offensive side of things. So I just struggle personally to find a situation where Vanderbilt's going to light up the scoreboard today. Now, they played well on offense the last 2 games. And if you count Southeastern, we'll give them 3. But it's not a great offensive team. They scored 62 points against Grambling earlier this year, scored 65 on Wofford, 65 on St. Mary's. They scored 48 points on Southern Miss. So it's not a good offensive team. Tennessee will probably choke the life out of them. Those 2 games, South Carolina at Kentucky and Vanderbilt at Tennessee, sound awful. The other game that's at 8 o'clock, it'll be right after LSU finishes. It'll be on ESPNU. Is an interesting one for a few reasons. Auburn is headed to Ole Miss. Now, Ole Miss is 0-3 in the league. Auburn is 2-1. Ole Miss has got some manageable games coming up. If they can beat Auburn tonight on their home floor, they've got Georgia and South Carolina and a walking wounded Arkansas team coming up. They could maybe get some positive momentum going. Auburn, on the other hand, is still trying to find its way. They lead the country in block shots. Jonai Broom's been huge for them in that perspective. But other than that, it hasn't been awesome. Now, they were very good against Arkansas over the weekend, so that's a start. And I figure with Bruce Pearl calling the shots, they're going to be a pretty good team. But they haven't been to this point. Ole Miss needs to get it in gear, quite frankly. And that game is at the Pavilion, the Sandy and John Black Pavilion, which I had not seen until this year. But it's in Oxford, and Auburn is a 1.5-point favorite. I've been airballing left and right, so those of you that like to fade me, I know there are a few in the Bayou Ford chat, jump aboard here. Give me Ole Miss at home to get off the schneid and to beat Auburn. 1.5-point line. Give me Ole Miss on the money line to win the game. Again, I don't think Ole Miss is all that great. They haven't certainly been great this year. They're 0-3 in league play. It was a tough start to league play. I'll give them that. Playing Tennessee and then going on the road to Alabama and to Mississippi State, not a ton of fun. And offensively, they scored 59 on Tennessee, 62 on Bama, and 54 on State. So they're averaging about 56 a game in SEC play. That's not great. But maybe against Auburn, they find some shots from the perimeter. The guards that they have that are pretty good players start to move in the right direction, and maybe Ole Miss gets a win. So, look, tomorrow's SEC slate is a little bit better than tonight's. Luckily, LSU plays tonight, so that'll occupy our time. But I'm curious to see Alabama and Arkansas tomorrow. I think Missouri at Texas A&M is a fascinating game tomorrow. Mississippi State and Georgia, not terrible tomorrow. So a little bit better on tomorrow's slate. Tonight, you got to have a couple of blowouts. Then a couple of games that could be pretty good with Florida, LSU, and Auburn and Ole Miss, although none of those 4 teams at this point is a premier team in the league. Those men are going to go to Tennessee and to Alabama at this point. And again, I've said this twice on the show, and I'm going to say it a few more times over the next 3 or 4 weeks. I cannot wait till those 2 teams play. That is going to be an absolutely fantastic basketball game. So we'll just have to wait a little bit on that one. I do want to remind you that I will be out at Pluckers tonight for sports trivia. We'll just get to it when we get to it because I'll be in the PMAC. That game should end a few minutes after 8. Hop in the car, zip on down Nicholson, and we should be ready to roll at 8:30. If we're at 8:45 or 8:50 when we start, that's just when we start. Maybe there's an overtime or something, but I will be leaving the PMAC, going to Pluckers for sports trivia. So plan to do it at 8:30. We'll just do it whenever I get there. Always a lot of fun. If you're going to the PMAC tonight, you can head on to Pluckers for a little post-game meal, and we can watch Auburn and Ole Miss, and we can go ahead and win some gift cards. Cold drinks, great food over there at Pluckers. Very much looking forward to a little Pluckers sports trivia tonight. $15 per round to first place, $5 per round for second place, $10 for the best team name. So come on out to Pluckers tonight for some sports trivia post LSU and Florida. All right, that'll do it for hour number 1. I gave a lot of thought to my opening segment today about the state of college football and what last night taught us. Obviously, Georgia totally outclassed TCU from start to finish. I gave my thoughts on it in my opening monologues. You can go check that out. Where's Georgia's place in college football right now, and what does the future hold for Kirby Smart? I think it's pretty bright over there in Athens. Glenn West, always good enough to join us from Go247. He was with us at 1:30. He'll be in the PMAC tonight. So if you missed any of that, you can always catch it on demand, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Go to the On Demand tab, find my show. You can get every single bit of audio that we do right there on the On Demand page. If you're more of a Spotify or Apple podcast folk, head on over there. Just type our name in, Hunt Palmer Show. You can find all of our segments. And, of course, we're always live on the Watch ESPN 1045 YouTube stream. Appreciate you all in the Bayou Ford chat. Throw us a like if you would. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube. Like, subscribe, rate, review. All that stuff helps us to find some more eyeballs, find some more earlobes, and to get, well, I guess you wouldn't want to find earlobes. You would want to find the drum where people can actually hear. But as many ears as we can get to, we appreciate you helping us out in that vein. Hour 2 is coming up next. LSU is still working the transfer portal very hard. There have been some names that have surfaced. Social media helps us with that. We'll talk about that at 2:15. Sharif Ishak on the Saints, on the Pels, his normal New Orleans spot there at 2:30. And we always do take it or leave it to finish things up. To lead off hour number 2, I get you ready for LSU in Florida. Got a scouting report on the Gators, some familiar names you may remember. Big game for the Tigers tonight. You know what lies ahead in terms of that schedule. So we'll get you ready for LSU in Florida. 6 o'clock tip from the PMAC. Come back with us after Sports Center. It is the Hunt Palmer Show.
Bayou Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram has $10,000 off MSRP on all new 2022 Black Widow Jeep Gladiators in stock. All new Bayou vehicles come with a 1 million mile powertrain warranty and free delivery. If you need sales or service, the crew at Bayou is going to do right by you.
I've been doing business with Luba for 25 years. They're dependable, trustworthy. It's just the attention to detail with our clients.
Our folks have years and years of experience. They're highly trained professionals, but many companies have that asset. What I'd like to think makes Luba a bit different is that we use those talents in a way that truly is dedicated to serving the needs of the folks who depend on us.
At Ochsner, we know healing is a team sport. That's why we've partnered with world-renowned orthopedic surgeon Dr. James Andrews to create the Ochsner Andrews Orthopedics and Sports Medicine Institute. Whether you're a professional athlete or a weekend warrior, our team of specialists are dedicated to getting you back in the game. So whatever your reasons are for reaching your personal best, we've only got one: you. Ochsner Andrews Institute. Long live you.
Time doesn't stop, and the world keeps spinning. Community, culture, and communications, the powerful circle that connects us together. We're creating the next evolution, a network built for every possibility, moving faster than ever before, streaming us forward into the future. And the revolution is closer than you think. RTC, ATEL, and Vision are now Rev. New name, same company.
This winter, meet the heroes of performance. Only available at the Acura Season of Performance.
This winter, visit your local Acura dealer for attractive offers on the Integra.
Louisiana. It's a place defined by culture, by pride, by passion, by people who do more than love this place. They celebrate it, elevate it, champion it. They are the individuals who embody what makes Louisiana great. The companies that make Louisiana a better place to work and live. The nonprofits leading transformational change in our communities. Champions of Louisiana are all around us, and LWCC is proud to celebrate them because we've always been Louisiana loyal, supporting the workers, the innovators, the change agents of this great place we call home. Who are the champions around you? Together, we can share their stories. Together, we can help our home state thrive. Together, we are Louisiana loyal. Always.
Opelousas is here to help you ring in the new year with no markups, and you'll never pay over MSRP. And we have new inventory arriving daily. So Happy New Year from our Corvette Toyota family to yours.
This is SportsCenter.
I'm Christine Lisi. Maybe the third time's a charm for Carlos Correa. He and the Twins finalizing a 6-year, $200 million contract. Reports ESPN's Jeff Passan has a vesting option that can max out at $270 million and is pending a physical. Correa failed to finalize agreements with the Giants and Mets over concerns about his surgically repaired right leg. Cowboys coach Mike McCarthy's job status will not hinge on the outcome of Monday night's NFC wildcard game against the Buccaneers. That today from team owner Jerry Jones. Jones told 105.3 The Fan McCarthy's job status will not be impacted should Dallas lose, adding he's got a lot more to evaluate his coach on than this playoff game. ESPN NFL analyst Marcus Spears.
I want Jerry to understand the type of pressure that he puts on a coach, and obviously that exists in Dallas. But Mike McCarthy is being unfairly talked about his job here again for the second year in a row. And the starting quarterback missed 4 games this year, and he's won 12 games.
NBA Warriors point guard Steph Curry ready to return from a left shoulder injury tonight against the Suns.
We all know the game isn't over till it's over. So next time you need parts for your car, don't call it quits. Go to eBay Motors. They have 122 million parts to take your car into overtime. Get the right parts at the right prices. ebaymotors.com. Let's ride.
Now, Hunt Palmer. Hunt Palmer on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Holding down the middle of the day. Live from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studios. This is Hunt Palmer.
Hour number 2 on a Tuesday, Hunt Palmer Show, 104.5 ESPN, coming to you from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studio downtown in the capital city. Tigers on the hardwood tonight inside the PMAC LSU in Florida, 6 o'clock tip. I always laugh at this. I always see tweets sometimes from sometimes media or sometimes fans, whatever, at like 5:50 for that 6 o'clock tip, and the PMAC is pretty much empty. And nobody coming to this one. Nobody can get to the PMAC for 6 o'clock in this city. It just can't be done. There's too much traffic. You got to park and walk. There will be a pretty good crowd in there at the under 16 timeout. I've been doing this I've been going to that stadium now, I guess, since 2006. That's 17 years. That is a tough thing to say out loud. But it just takes a second for the 6 o'clock tip. There will be a decent crowd in there tonight, and I hope that there is. I'll be in that number. Florida had lost 4 of 5 before they beat Georgia there in first year of the Todd Golden era, who comes from San Francisco. They lost their first 2 conference games to Auburn and A&M by 3 points each. So in those games, just couldn't get it done late. The last 3 times LSU and Florida have played, they've been in Gainesville. They have not been here since 2020. Interestingly enough, Matt McMahon and Todd Golden played each other in the first round of the NCAA tournament last year. It was Murray State against San Francisco. Murray State won a late one. So those 2 guys played in the NCAA tournament and then showed up in the SEC just about a month later. Not the last time that we'll see some similar faces here, as I've teased a couple times in the previous hour, as we get into this Florida team. Statistically speaking, when I dive into the numbers with Florida, there is absolutely nothing that sticks out. They're not in the top 40 of just about anything in the country that I could find. They're not in the bottom 70 of anything I can find. They're just a pretty average, run-of-the-mill basketball team. Offensive efficiency, they're 112th. Possessions per game, 86. I guess they're a little faster. LSU's 252, so LSU's much slower, so there's a contrast there, but it's not like they're Loyola Marymount, and it's not like they're Princeton. They're second in the conference in free throws percentage, so they shoot the free throws pretty well. They don't shoot a lot of threes, 265th in the country in threes attempted. They don't get a lot of percentage of their points for 3, 285th in the country, so on the lower end of those. They don't offensive rebound great, 265th. These are the most noteworthy statistics I could find, which is to say there's nothing really noteworthy about this Florida team. Defensive efficiency, 48th. That's fine. They haven't guarded the three perfectly. They're 238th in the country. LSU shot it okay. Basically, when I look at Florida statistically, I understand where their rosters come from. I understand they have a first-year head coach. They've got some transfers. They've been fairly competitive. They're basically LSU. There is not a huge difference in the state of the program in Gainesville, Florida, and Baton Rouge. There's really not. The only real difference is that Florida's 8-7 because Florida played UConn and Oklahoma and West Virginia and Xavier and Florida State. LSU played Winthrop and Wofford and New Orleans and Texas Arlington, and the list goes on and on and on. But it's a team built with a lot of transfers with a first-year head coach, and they're 1-2 in the league and don't have super high expectations for this year. It's a pretty even matchup on paper. Now let's get to the personnel side of thing with these Florida Gators. Their lead guard is Kyle Lofton. He's a 6'3", 188-pound grad transfer, and I heard that name, and I went, I watched him play earlier. That sounds familiar. And it won't sound familiar to anyone listening, but y'all don't pore over rosters and statistics, specifically for NCAA tournaments, the way that I do, especially when I was doing Hoops with Hunt. And Kyle Lofton triggered me because he started for St. Bonaventure in the tournament opener a couple of years ago. In that game, he went 3 of 18 from the floor, but you remember the COVID tournament where we were up in Indiana and LSU played St. Bonaventure and won that game. Cam Thomas scored like 28. Kyle Lofton was one of their leading scorers. He's a 3-time All-A-10 player. He led the nation in minutes while he was at St. Bonaventure, and he's been their lead guy this year for Florida. He's 31% from three, which is not great, but he's averaging about 9 points per game and has been pretty good for him on the wing. Trey Bonham is basically the point guard. Lofton helps him with the point as well. Lofton actually leads the team in assists. But Bonham is a speed player. He's 6 feet tall, 170 pounds, averages 10 points a game, 2 assists. He's a speeds player. I think this is a guy that Juice Hill will spend some time with. I don't know if they're going to start Juice Hill or not. I don't know if they're going to go with Hannibal or if Hayes is going to take the ball more. I don't know if Hayes feels good or not. There are some issues at point guard for LSU, but the matchup would seem to be a Juice Hill matchup because of the height and the quickness of Bonham. And then Will Richard is another guy that I thought, man, do I remember that name? Yep, 6'4" sophomore guard. Last year came to the PMAC with Belmont and played 28 minutes, 16 points. He was 4 of 8 from 3 against LSU for Belmont last year. Now he is in Gainesville. So a couple of guards that LSU has seen in the past, Kyle Lofton from St. Bonaventure in the tournament and Will Richard from Belmont last year. Richard's usually a double-figure guy. He averages 10 points per game, 4.5 rebounds. Good 6'4" wing for him that's played well. Think you'll recognize the last guy, or the next to last guy that I'll tell you here, is Alex Fudge. Of course, Alex Fudge was a Tiger from the state of Florida, came here for a couple of years, 6'9", 200 pounds, absolutely ridiculous athlete. Highlight dunks, blocked shots, very active, and has been good for Florida this year. 7.5 points, 5.5 rebounds, shot free throws exceptionally well for him, 22 of 25, 38% from three, which is very good. Only blocking a shot per game, which surprised me, but you know Alex Fudge. You know how athletic he is. I think Fudge is going to play in the NBA one day. When the skill set comes together with that frame and athleticism, an NBA team is going to take a chance on him. He's not there yet. He's probably a 4-year college player, if we're being honest. This is his 3rd year. But he's a special athlete. LSU will have to contend with him. And then the big man in the middle, Colin Castleton, who's been there for 3 years. You all know him by now, and LSU has had real problems dealing with Colin Castleton. 6'11", 250-pound grad student, 15 points and 7.5 rebounds per game. He's gone over 30 points twice this year. He shot free throws very well. He's taken 60 more shots than anyone on Florida's team this year. He also leads the SEC in blocks. He is big. He is skilled. He is tough. He is active. He is a heck of a player for Florida. He will be the focal point of LSU's defensive strategy. And in my opinion, you're going to have to send doubles with this guy. I know that Lofton can score. I know that Richard has shot the three pretty well. I know that Bonham has shot. Bonham had a 7 for 7 3 game earlier this year against Florida A&M. I'm just simply not going to allow Florida to toss the ball to the block to Castleton, play him straight up with either KJ Williams, who would get in foul trouble in that instance, or with, Jalen Reed, who is not strong enough to deal with him, or with Derek Fountain, who's a little wiry for him. You'll get beat if you let Castleton go one-on-one. He's a technician down there. He pump fakes, he up and unders, he jump hooks. You got to send a double. You got to get it out of his hand and hope you can rotate and do some things. I like to try to deny him, maybe try to front him, get some help on the backside of it. But I would rather die by doubling Castleton, having them throw out and shoot threes, than I would throw it down to Castleton, get KJ Williams in foul trouble because he's trying to guard him. Castleton goes for 28 points and 14 rebounds, and you get beat. I'm not going to do that. Let the guards try to win it. No, sir. Not with Castleton. That's kind of my thought. Now, for LSU, one of the nice encouragements over the last couple of games, even though they've been losses, is Adam Miller's shot a little bit better. In the last 2 games, he's 10 of 21 from 3. That's, of course, a tick under 50%. Florida hasn't guarded the 3 specifically well. Miller hopefully shoots it pretty well. One thing I didn't necessarily expect, and keep in mind, we don't have much to go off of with Adam Miller. All of it is some freshman year footage from a loaded Illinois team that was a 1 seed. Of course, he wasn't going to be a feature player on that team. But over the last 3 games, he's 1 of 10 from 2-point range. He's not shooting very many of them, 2-1 on 3s to 2s, and he's not making any of them. He's 10%. He's basically a one-trick pony at this point. Now, that trick is very important. Shooting the 3 is very important. So I'll take it. But I'd like him to maybe get to the rim, show a little bit of versatility, and continue to knock down shots the way he has the last couple of games. That's a very nice development. The rest of LSU's guys outside of Williams pretty much give you what they give you. Hannibal's going to give you some driving layups in a game, maybe a free throw or 2 here or there, and that's it. Cam Hayes is going to give you 8 or 9 points, knock down a 3, and that's what he's going to give you. Derek Fountain, usually 7 to 9, 10, 12 points, couple rebounds. The variable is Miller, if it's could be really good or really not. So hopefully Adam Miller's kind of gotten it figured out for LSU. So that's your look at the Florida Gators. This is a game that I think is important for LSU because Alabama's coming up next and you can't beat them. I think people are a little bit overestimating Auburn, suggesting that LSU cannot win that game. I understand that Auburn has a far greater reputation than LSU. On paper, their team at this point should be a lot better than LSU, but Auburn is not exactly a juggernaut, and it is in the PMAC next week. So that's a winnable game. It's not to suggest that if LSU, who's lost 2 in a row right now, loses to Florida, that's 3. Guaranteed loss to Bama, that's 4. Would lose to Auburn for sure, that's 5. And then home against Tennessee, 6. At Arkansas, 7. You're not guaranteed a 7-game lose streak if you lose this game. It's possible, sure. But I still think we're a little bit overselling Auburn at that point in the PMAC. But this game is more winnable than Auburn, I think. I don't think Florida's great. They're very much in the same place as you. They got an SEC transfer in Fudge. You got one in Fountain. They've got some lower-level players that have come up, like Lofton and Richard. You've got some lower-level players like KJ Williams, Trey Hannibal, and how did I just totally blank? And Juice Hill. And you got a first-year head coach. You've got kind of a cobbled-together roster. You don't have a lot of expectations. This is a fair fight tonight. Hopefully LSU comes out and plays very well and wins. Hopefully it's a good crowd inside the PMAC. Very much looking forward to getting out there tonight. So that's your look at the Florida Gators. I'll give you my pick at the end of the show. We'll take a timeout. Transfer portal is a buzzing. Before we get to Sharif Ishaq at 2:30, what's LSU looking at right now on the football side of things? That's next on 104.5 ESPN.
Hunt Palmer on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Football fans, call your own plays during the NFL playoffs with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because when you bet the NFL same-game parlays from now through January 16th, all customers get up to $100 in free bets, win or lose. All you got to do is place a total of $20 or more in a same-game parlay or same-game parlay plus during the NFL's wildcard round. The more you bet, the more you get back in free bets. NFL same-game parlays are the perfect way to combine your bets for a chance at a larger payday. Build your own or choose from one of the same-game parlays pre-built for you in FanDuel's top-rated sportsbook app. If you're new to FanDuel, you can get up to $100 in free bets, win or lose, signing up with that promo code 1045ESPN. That is promo code 1045ESPN. Must be 21 and present in Louisiana. Bonus issues not withdrawable free bets. It expires 7 days after receipt. Max free bet $100. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. If you're someone who has a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-877-770-STOP.
In times of need, get a full list of phone numbers, websites, and other important emergency information on the Demco Stormwatch page at 1045ESPN.com.
You ever heard the tale of the misunderstood bull? A menacing beast who was born to float. A force of nature. The embodiment of grace. Quite grand, yet quiet and nimble. The Infiniti QX80.
Experience the Infiniti QX80 at your local Infiniti retailer.
I've been doing business with Luba for 25 years. They're dependable, trustworthy. It's just the attention to detail with our clients.
Our folks have years and years of experience. They're highly trained professionals. But many companies have that asset. What I'd like to think makes Luba a bit different is that we use those talents in a way that truly is dedicated to serving the needs of the folks who depend on us.
There it is, the extra mile, on the border of expected and extraordinary, for those willing to go further, like vans customized for work or play, with safety and tech to keep you connected, supported by a 5-star sales, service, and finance team, and backed by the 1-star you know. So go the extra mile. It's never crowded, because so few have what it takes to go there. Mercedes-Benz Vans.
This is a house call. This is a follow-up appointment. This is a diabetes checkup. This isn't just more convenient care, it's more advanced care. This is innovating healthcare at Louisiana's #1 hospital, Ochsner.
ServiceMaster Elite create clean, disinfected work environments. As a local business, we take pride in serving the New Orleans and Baton Rouge areas. Our cleaning protocols follow CDC and OSHA standards for healthcare settings, offices, senior living, restaurants, and industrial plants. Contact ServiceMaster Elite to get your operation ready for reopening with germ disinfection cleaning. ServiceMaster.
Me, Jimmy Out and Mike Delicano for the Tuesday edition of Game Time presented by Bet Rivers. We're at Dozy Place on Government Street in the heart of Mid-City. Game Time presented by Bet Rivers, 6 to 8 p.m. on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
You're listening to Hunt Palmer on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Transfer portal stays at chugging along. Got an announcement during this show. It was actually about 45 minutes ago. That South Carolina edge player, I guess it is, Gilbert Edmond, has decided where he's going to transfer. He was visited LSU. LSU thought they were very much in the mix. He is a Florida product. He is headed to Florida State. Mike Norvell has done a very, very good job in the transfer portal, and LSU will feel the brunt of that coming up on Labor Day weekend. But Gilbert Edmond, somebody that LSU was very much in the mix for, that felt like they had a real good chance to land, he is going to go to Florida State. So your eyes look elsewhere, maybe edge if they're continuing to pursue that. One name that I saw that I commented on Twitter on over the weekend was Ovi Oghufo. LSU has had him in for a visit. He's a guy that signed at Notre Dame under Brian Kelly, ended up at Texas. He does have 1 year left, so LSU is going to look at him. That's a guy that obviously the staff's had a lot of relationships with, and that's something that you've begun to see manifests itself so much over the last 2 years with the transfer portal being as open as much as it is there so many players that staffs have relationships with, even from other places, because they've all been somewhere and come back to here, whether it's high school coach at DeSmet up in St. Louis or somebody that had been at Notre Dame or Cincinnati. And there are just instances where you've been able to pull some guys in from where staff members were. And I think Ovi Oghufo is the guy that LSU will look for. If you think that was a poor job of pronouncing a name, I've got more for you. David Ogwogbu, he's in the transfer portal. I don't know anything about this guy other than that he started at Oklahoma at linebacker and made over 100 tackles. LSU is really, really thin at the linebacker position right now. I think they've got to add one or two more out of the linebacker spot. I don't know if David Ogwogbu is a great player or is not a great player, but he was a productive player at Oklahoma playing inside linebacker. He played better than 50 games. He was a triple-digit tackle guy, and that seems to me like a guy that you would go after. Now, I just got through telling you that they were after a lot of guys who they had previous ties to. This, in my opinion, doesn't fall into that category. I can't see a tie from Ogwogbu to this LSU staff, but he's a guy I would love to see LSU go after and try to reel in, because they need inside backers. You've got Penn. You're going to move Perkins in there. You've got West Weeks and Whit Weeks, and you're going to pull in Brathwaite in this class, but you still are a little bit thin there in numbers because you've had a lot of defections coming out of there. Demario Tolan, if you missed this over the weekend, is headed to Auburn. That's where he will finish. Well, he will play the next portion of his college football. He may finish anywhere. I have no idea. He graduates. He may go 2 more places. But you've got to have some guys on the defensive front, and I think David Ogwogbu would be a great start there. And then the name that so many people had gotten excited about and fired up about was Justin Rogers, former 5-star prospect who had been at Kentucky, and he did visit LSU. We've got no information on a commitment to this point. There's thought that Alabama could be in the mix, Auburn could be in the mix, Miami could be in the mix, but right now, all quiet. And the ruling is, if you're unaware of how this thing actually works, you've got 9 more days to get in the transfer portal. Once you're in, you can commit anytime, any place, whenever, wherever you want to go. But you have to get in. You cannot enter the transfer portal again until after spring practice if you don't get in based on the 19th. I'm confident in saying that there's probably some sort of waiver scenario where you could. I'm just unaware of it. They're going to try to keep things between the buoys here and keep guys. So you've got about another week before people make their decision. And I'm interested in the fact that LSU has not had a quarterback other than Jaden Daniels, who said he's coming back, make a statement. And now you've had 9 days to cool off and consider your options. It feels like a pretty positive thing for LSU at this point that you haven't had one of your quote-unquote, and I use this term likely, backup quarterbacks jump right into the portal. Brian Kelly said in a press conference that we do not have a quarterback controversy. Jaden is our number 1 quarterback, but Garrett will have a chance to compete with him. And Walker is a talented player who we have bright hopes for. But you would think at this point that somebody might make a move. You've had over a week to decompress. You had a month leading up to the bowl game. Garrett Nussmeier and Walker Howard have known for probably a month's time that Jaden Daniels was going to come back to LSU. And it's just quiet over there, which to me is great. I would love a situation where you go play Florida State next year with Jaden Daniels and Garrett Nussmeier and Walker Howard on the roster. The more, the better, especially when you've got a slender running quarterback at the helm. Times he's going to get hurt. It happened this year. I still don't believe that's going to happen. I have to give the disclaimer every time. I'm happy to give the disclaimer every time, but it's got to happen. I don't have any inside information. I don't know what anyone's going to do. I don't have any sources. I haven't talked to Garrett Nussmeier or Walker Howard or their parents or any of that. My opinion is that you're not going to have these 3 guys on campus for another 7 months. I just don't see that happening. But I would love it if it did. And to this point, you would expect if one of those guys had certainly made their mind up they were going to leave, you'd hear about it. Now, there's nothing suggesting that you can't get a tweet in the next 30 seconds. I'm leaving now. See ya. It's real time. Anything can happen. But to this point, all's quiet on the LSU quarterback front, which works just fine for me. We'll continue to monitor the transfer portal and see just how LSU rounds out this class. But I told you at the top of the show yesterday, talking about LSU's corners and what they had brought in, what they've done at the defensive front, what's decided to come back on the offensive side of the ball. It looks to me to be a pretty competent football team, pretty solid football team with some depth, with some top-end talent that ought to be in a better spot than it was this past August as they went through fall camp. Just my thoughts. But bummer of the news of the day that Gilbert Edmond, 1, did not decide to come to LSU, 2, went to the school that you play in the season opener. That is never, ever fun. Reminder one more time that we'll be at Pluckers Sports Trivia tonight at 8:30-ish. I will be at the PMAC at 6 o'clock for the tip-off of the LSU-Florida game. I will be there for the duration of the Florida game. If it's a blowout, I might leave early. If it's double overtime, I'm staying for double overtime. So we may start trivia at 8:45 or 9 o'clock. We may start it straight up at 8:30 as we always do, but I will get to Pluckers for sports trivia from leaving the PMAC at some point. Looking forward to that. If you're looking for something to do after the game or you want to go place to watch the game, Pluckers is an awesome spot to do that. We'll be there at 8:30 for sports trivia. You can win gift cards, great drinks, great food. Coming out to Pluckers Nicholson location this afternoon. You can go this afternoon if you want. If you want to see me and do sports trivia, come tonight after the game at 8:30. Let's look around the transfer portal, and a little reminder to come out to Pluckers when we come back. We'll head on down to Sharif Ishaq in Nola. The Saints season is finally done. Sharif tweeted that he's very excited about that, very relieved about that. Pels got a nice win last night, but they've still got significant injury concerns. We'll get the pulse of New Orleans next with Sharif.
This is on Palmer. Our listeners fire off their opinions on the JimsFirearms.net hotline at 499-1045. Keep listening for your next chance to shoot us your thoughts with the JimsFirearms.net hotline on 1045 ESPN Baton Rouge.
I've been doing business with Luba for 25 years. They're dependable, trustworthy. It's just the attention to detail with our clients.
Our folks have years and years of experience. They're highly trained professionals. But many companies have that asset. What I'd like to think makes Luba a bit different is that we use those talents in a way that truly is dedicated to serving the needs of the folks who depend on us.
At Auctioner, we know healing is a team sport. That's why we've partnered with world-renowned orthopedic surgeon Dr. James Andrews to create the Auctioner Andrews Orthopedics and Sports Medicine Institute. Whether you're a professional athlete or a weekend warrior, our team of specialists are dedicated to getting you back in the game. So whatever your reasons are for reaching your personal best, we've only got one. You. Auctioner Andrews Institute. Long live you.
Follow us on Twitter at 1045ESPN to cast your vote in the Citizens Bank and Trust Poll of the Day. Vote daily inside Off the Bench, anytime. Hunt Palmer. And after further review, Citizens Bank and Trust brings you the Poll of the Day via Twitter at 1045ESPN.
Time doesn't stop, and the world keeps spinning. Community, culture, and communications. The powerful circle that connects us together. We're creating the next evolution. A network built for every possibility, moving faster than ever before, streaming us forward into the future. And the revolution is closer than you think. RTC, ETEL, and Vision are now Rev. New name, same company.
This winter, meet the heroes of performance. Only available at the Acura Season of Performance.
This winter, visit your local Acura dealer for attractive offers on the Integra.
Louisiana. It's a place defined by culture, by pride, by passion, by people who do more than love this place. They celebrate it, elevate it, champion it. They are the individuals who embody what makes Louisiana great. The companies that make Louisiana a better place to work and live. The nonprofits leading transformational change in our communities. Champions of Louisiana are all around us, and LWCC is proud to celebrate them because we've always been Louisiana loyal. supporting the workers, the innovators, the change agents of this great place we call home. Who are the champions around you? Together, we can share their stories. Together, we can help our home state thrive. Together, we are Louisiana Loyal. Always.
You ever heard the tale of the misunderstood bull? A menacing beast that was born to float. A force of nature. The embodiment of grace. Quite grand, yet quiet and nimble. The Infinity QX80.
Experience the Infinity QX80 at your local Infinity retailer.
NFL Wild Card Weekend. Tune in Saturday when the 49ers host the Seahawks at 3:30 p.m., immediately followed by the Jaguars and Chargers at 7:15. Then on Sunday, the Bills host the Dolphins at noon, the Vikings host the Giants at 3:30, and the Bengals host the Ravens at 7:15. Right here on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
This is Hunt Palmer on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Coming down the home stretch here. Hunt Palmer Show here on a Tuesday. Every Tuesday at 2:30, we head out to the Jim's Firearm Hotline, down to the Big Easy where we find Sharif Ishak, WDSU. Sharif, how are you?
Better than that game I had to cover on Sunday.
But it's over now, right?
Thankfully. That was so painful. That was worse than a preseason game.
Yeah, it was just awful on offense and not that. I mean, it was better on defense, and then they gave up the one play to Terrace Marshall late. Any positives you took from the defense playing well the last month?
Yeah, especially Tyrann Mathieu. He started off slow with that defense, and we never really got a chance to see he and Marcus May play together. But when Tyrann played in his last 4 or 5 weeks, he was really excellent, like legit excellent. And he barely missed tackles. He was good in coverage and had a few picks. So that's, one of the positive signs. Of course, Alontae Taylor, he continued to play well. He even played well in this game, although Sam Darnold was an absolute mess. But he's played well down the stretch. Caden Ellis, like I told you, over the last few weeks has been maybe the biggest surprise for me on that defense. And he's one of those guys that you have to bring back next season. You can make him your starting linebacker down the line, and that's how good he's been playing. But, yeah, those are some of the guys that I thought played really well. The issue, the defensive line, I mean, that's been an issue all season long. Most of the sacks have come from the linebackers like Caden Ellis and Demario Davis. But the defense did its job. The offense is just putrid.
Well, let's stay on the defense real quick. Marcus Davenport gets ejected. Was that his swan song as a Saint?
I think so.
Yep.
That'll do it. I mean, you spend 2 first-round picks on the guy that, you didn't have to draft there, and you could have just stayed put and gotten Lamar Jackson, and you'd be talking about long-term extension with Lamar Jackson right now instead. No joke. They didn't even have to move off that pick in 18. They could have gotten Lamar where they were without even moving. But, I think that's it. And it's a half a sack production. It's just, man, that's not good. I mean, he had a really good rookie campaign. I know he was hurt. He's been up and down. You could see the potential, but, potential isn't always guaranteed in the NFL. And he just did not have a good season. It was bad. I mean, all the way around.
Yeah, I mean, it's just the potential is the word we've been told over and over with Davenport and Peyton Turner. And Peyton Turner had 2 sacks against the Raiders and didn't have a sack in any other game and was battling injuries all year. What are they? It's not the same situation, but do you still have any hope there?
I have more hope in Peyton Turner. I really do. I mean, one of those 2 had to hit, and I think eventually whenever he's fully healthy, and I hope I really do hope he proves me right. When he's fully healthy that, he can make something happen because they need somebody. They need some bodies along that defensive line because the production this year just wasn't great. I mean, it really wasn't. I mean, the pressure's not all that great. I mean, they missed Sam Darnold a few times in that game, but still, it's just a consistency throughout those 17 games. Just it's not what you're looking for. That's not how you become an even more successful defense. I think early in the season when we saw some struggles with the defense, it was because the defensive line could not do anything. And without the defensive line getting to the quarterback, you're not going to get the turnovers, and that's why they struggled with the takeaways.
What about Cam Jordan's situation? What's the future hold for him?
He wants to be back. He said it multiple times. He'd love to be back, and even after the game and yesterday, he said he understands the business aspect of it. And DeMario Davis said the same thing. And he understands the business. Two guys are going to be making a lot of money next year.
Yep.
The thing is, I don't really know you can move on from him. I mean, it really puts you in a bigger cap issue if you get rid of both of them. So I feel like both come back. That's just my opinion. I could be wrong. I've said it multiple times. Like, how in the world are they going to get it done with all this, cap issues? And, they seem to keep making it work because they keep kicking the can down the road. But I think I could see them back one more year.
As far as Michael Thomas goes, they restructured the deal. I get him $900K up front, but it appears that it's kind of all in a posturing move to let him go. Is that the way you read it?
Yeah, they did the same thing with Drew Brees and Malcolm Jenkins before they retired.
Yeah.
They made those moves to trim down the salary all the way down to pretty much a vet minimum. So, yeah, I think it's over. It's unfortunate, man. I mean, he started off so hot in that Atlanta Falcons game. And he made some plays in the second week against the Bucs, and it all went downhill from there. It's just unfortunate. They just can't keep him around. That's just too much money on the books, and you've got to move on. He started off, the first 4 seasons were awesome. Only played in 12 games the last 3 years. The ankle, the foot, the off-the-field stuff you heard about with Peyton and C.J. Gardner-Johnson at a practice. It's time to move on. That's it. Give him a chance to sign somewhere else. Maybe he pans out, but it's just his body just keeps breaking, and it's just falling apart, and that's unfortunate because he was the most dominant receiver for a 3 or 4 year stretch.
Yeah, I mean, I think in that situation, you want it to work, and you have these memories of when it was so good, and sometimes decisions to move on from players are really, really difficult. This one doesn't feel that difficult. It's just if it works somewhere else, maybe it works, but we can't. There's nothing we can do here.
Yeah, I thought maybe if he stayed healthy this season, things could have been different on that offense. The same with Jameis. We don't know. The hindsight of it is 2020. You maybe thought, all right, this is going to be good this year. Mike is in good, the good attitude. He's healthy, and then boom, just like that, it was over. I mean, it was pretty much sums up the season, the whole season for the team, not just Michael Thomas. It just seems like everything went wrong, and it just the offense, man. The offense, they got to figure it out, hon. I mean, they really have to figure it out.
What's step one?
Step one is, the most obvious position is quarterback, and you're seeing the Sean Payton rumors out there. He goes to this team and that team. That can't be addressed. It could be partly addressed in free agency, and people are going to say, well, they don't have the money. Mickey and Kai always find the money to make it happen, and I'm cool if you're going to sign a quarterback to, as a bridge. But if they can get the 3rd overall pick from the Cardinals, and that's the starting price, and I'm seeing a lot of tweets saying, well, I just don't see the Cardinals offering the 3rd overall pick. Well, then guess what? You don't get a
new
Hall of Fame coach.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're not getting Sean Payton. I mean, you can go, well, we'll give you the 1st next year. Mickey's not going to say yes to that. He's going to want the 1st this year to get his future quarterback. So, and that's one way to address it. Like I said, the other way, you got Jimmy G out there. It's not great, There really aren't that many great quarterbacks out there in free agency. I can list off a bunch of them. Do you really want Baker Mayfield? Do you really want Sam Darnold?
Oh, no.
Lamar Jackson is, you could say, hey, I want Lamar, but they're going to probably franchise tag him if he doesn't sign back with the Ravens. So, which would be the funniest part if they got Lamar Jackson after all those years.
Yeah, well, so you say step one is obviously quarterback. What about Pete Carmichael?
Yeah. That's the next part. I mean, that's 1A, 1B. You've got to find your right offensive coordinator. I mean, they had to beg him to come back last offseason. And I think they just want to keep the continuity, getting work. Once again, we're saying a lot of getting works on this phone conversation. So they've got to find a young, brilliant mind, man, who can get this offense up to date and up to speed and make it work. Because they have the pieces, hon. I mean, Rashid Shaheed, he's come on. Chris Olave, you have in. We got to bring Juwan Johnson back. I think you still need to find another piece along that offensive line, specifically interior offensive line, Andrews Pete's position. You've got to find someone who could who's reliable there. But the pieces are there. Young pieces are there. Just got to find that brilliant offensive mind who can, make it happen for them.
Yeah, more of the age is on the defense. The offense actually has some younger players that are showing a lot of promise. We'll continue to talk Saints here as we move forward, but I do want to switch over to the Pels. For now, the injuries were the big story last week. You get a nice road win against a lesser team, and then you got a big boy game coming up on the road, coming up on Thursday night. Where do you see the Pels right now?
They're fluctuating up and down, but that's expected to happen when you don't have Zion and BI on the court. And I was hoping to see BI come back for the Celtics game, or maybe even against the Pistons Friday, but it's looking unlikely. Maybe Monday in Cleveland in that afternoon game against the Cavs. But I think they're doing all right. It's expected to have some issues whenever your two stars are out, but you're seeing C.J. McCollum over the last 4 games step up as their starter whenever he started. I know he didn't play against the Mavs, but he's doing the job that, what you thought he would do whenever they brought him over here last year. Now he's becoming a consistent a scorer for them, and that's what they need. And Jonas Valanciunas last night, that was a confidence builder. You needed that from him last night in a game like that. I think the guy who's really done an excellent job this season, Hunt, is Najee Marshall.
Yeah.
The guy that he deserves a ton of credit for what he's done this season. He has proved me wrong. I didn't know if he was going to be this solid, and he's done exactly that for this team, and he's got to keep it going, especially if Herb Jones misses a few games there after landing on his back, and thankfully he avoided a serious injury, and maybe he's back sooner rather than later. Hope he doesn't miss that much time, but he has been the biggest surprise for me, Najee Marshall. Herb Jones, his offense hasn't been really, up and down as well. I mean, defense is there, but you got to see his offense, come to life at some point in time.
Give him much of a shot in Boston on Thursday night?
Man, that's a tough team to beat. I mean, when they were here in New Orleans, where they reined in 10 3-pointers in the first quarter, they kept it close there after that. But if you're not fully healthy against that team, it's really hard to beat them in Boston. I mean, even healthy, it's hard to beat them. So you never know in the NBA, man. I didn't think they would beat the Mavs without all their stars, and they found a way to beat the Mavs, at home to start the season. But I think Boston wins that game. So it's very important for them to beat the Pistons and Cavs the next 2 games.
Wednesday night. I can't read a calendar. It's right in front of me, but it's Wednesday night at 6:30 to Pels in Boston. Sharif, thanks for the time, man.
Anytime, Hunt.
Sharif Ishak, WDSU, putting a wrap on the Saints and continuing to talk about the Pels, who are just treading water right now. Got a nice win against Washington, but things would appear to be a little bit more difficult coming up tomorrow night in Boston against one of the best teams in the NBA without some of your biggest firepower. We'll come back. We'll play some Take It or Leave It. We'll finish up shop here on a Tuesday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show.
Hunt Palmer on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Bayou Ford. Check out the inventory. BayouFord.com. Whether it's a Ford Explorer, that's what I've got. Got plenty of room for the car seat and the golf clubs in there. But if you got a crew, you may need a bigger SUV. The Expedition can be your friend. Maybe F-150, F-250. Maybe you're looking for a car like a Mustang. They've got the Broncos as well. Check out the inventory. It changes daily. The sales update daily on the website. You can go to the inventory tab right there on BayouFord.com, and you can type in what vehicle you want, make, model, year, mileage, all that kind of stuff. If they've got it, they got it. If they don't, well, you can wait because they continue to update the inventory as it rolls in. Or you can just call Ben Gagne and the crew down there at Bayou Ford and say, hey, look, I want this. Can you do it? And they'll say, yeah. Just give us 60 to 90 days. We'll turn around a custom vehicle for you from Bayou Ford, and when it comes in, we'll have one of our 6 full-time drivers drive it right to your front door. Never been more convenient to buy a car than it is at Bayou Ford. You can do it at BayouFord.com. Every new purchase comes with a 1,000,000-mile powertrain warranty. A 1,000,000-mile powertrain warranty from Bayou Ford. The website's BayouFord.com. Bayou Ford, where they're going to do right by you.
In times of need, get a full list of phone numbers, websites, and other important emergency information on the Demco Stormwatch page at 1045ESPN.com.
Before we begin any electrical work here, we perform a home safety check that begins at your electrical panel to make sure that you and your family are safe. For all your upgrades, installations, and repairs, call Mr. Electric.
Moon Griffon is back. The voice of Louisiana politics makes his return to Baton Rouge. Catch the Moon Griffon Show weekdays from 9 to 11 a.m. on Talk 107.3.
There it is, the extra mile, on the border of expected and extraordinary, for those willing to go further, like vans customized for work or play, with safety and tech to keep you connected. Supported by a 5-star sales, service, and finance team, and backed by the 1-star you know. So go the extra mile. It's never crowded, because so few have what it takes to go there. Mercedes-Benz Vans.
I've been doing business with Luba for 25 years. They're dependable, trustworthy. It's just the attention to detail with our clients.
Our folks have years and years of experience. They're highly trained professionals. But many companies have that asset. What I'd like to think makes Luba a bit different is that we use those talents in a way that truly is dedicated to serving the needs of the folks who depend on us.
This is a house call. This is a follow-up appointment. This is a diabetes checkup. This isn't just more convenient care, it's more advanced care. This is innovating healthcare at Louisiana's #1 hospital, Ochsner.
ServiceMaster Elite create clean, disinfected work environments. As a local business, we take pride in serving the New Orleans and Baton Rouge areas. Our cleaning protocols follow CDC and OSHA standards for healthcare settings, offices, senior living, restaurants, and industrial plants. Contact ServiceMaster Elite to get your operation ready for reopening with germ disinfection cleaning. ServiceMaster Elite, the trusted choice in professional cleaning since 1996.
Gulf Coast Bank and Trust is giving our customers the power to bank anywhere, anytime during this challenging event. And we're right there with you. Our mobile banking app is a smart way to manage your money.
Matt Moscona inviting you to join us for Tuesday's AFR. We're recapping the Natty. Sean Salisbury joins us, and we'll preview LSU Florida in hoops. It's Tuesday's AFR. Join us from 3 to 6, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
You're listening to Hunt Palmer on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
A little portal news within the hour. Now former LSU Tiger Derek Davis, who played some safety for LSU and was playing running back in a pinch against UAB and Purdue, has announced he's going to transfer back home to Pittsburgh. So Derek Davis not going to be in the mix for LSU at running back next year. He'll be playing for the Pitt Panthers up there near the Allegheny. So there's your transfer portal news of the hour. All right, let's play some Take It or Leave It, Taylor Sharp.
Yeah, let's do it. Stetson Bennett did not show up for the morning after press conference in L.A. today. A morning after press conference, take it or leave it.
I'm going to leave this. Why on earth are we having press conferences for college guys after they just won a national championship? That is the worst idea I've ever heard. The coaches don't even want to be there. The media doesn't even want to be there. We couldn't have asked these questions last night? I mean, I don't know why they're doing it. I realized that Joe Burrow, he did Pardon My Take when they were all three drunk in the hotel. I mean, somebody's done this in sunglasses before, if memory serves. Maybe Sean Payton did it in sunglasses after they won the Super Bowl. He had the press conference. That's what's ringing a bell. That's a bad idea. It's a bad idea for everybody involved. Now, this one, Georgia, at least, the game was over at like 8 o'clock out there. So they were able to actually experience, like LSU. I remember LSU won the national championship against Clemson. I did my show, which ends 90 minutes after the game ends. And then I got a quick Uber to the team hotel. But I got a couple drinks, was talking to my dad, my, I guess at the time, girlfriend at the time, now who's my wife. My mom's there, we're chatting. All of a sudden, I turned around and looked at my watch, and it was like 3:15 a.m. Like, that's how quick that goes. Then they at least had a little bit more time. But no, Stetson Bennett is going to go out on the town in Los Angeles and probably not going to make it to the 9 a.m. Press conference the morning after. Brock Bowers had to fill in for him in a pinch, and somebody asked why Stetson wasn't there, and Kirby's like, yeah, I don't think he's going to make it. So shout out Stetson Bennett. Good for you. You don't need to be at that press conference anyway.
All right, little golf topic for you. Ricky Fowler debuted a new golf swing on Twitter yesterday. Ricky will be back to relevance. Take it or leave it.
I'll take it. He was a really good player. He finished top 5 in all 4 majors one year, was a Team USA stalwart, never won a major, but won the Players. He lost it. He totally lost his game. He was out of the top 100 in the world. He's debuting a new swing. He's still fairly young. He's got a lot of talent. I think he can find it again. I hope so. I'll take it.
LSU taking on Florida this evening. Pack the PMAC tonight. Take it or leave it.
I'll take it. Let's get out there. As I'd mentioned in the game preview, it's going to be a late arriving crowd. That's what happens in Baton Rouge for a 6 o'clock game. But this is one that LSU can win. They're on a very similar talent level to Florida. It'd be really nice if they won it because the schedule gets really brutal, as we all know at this point. So, yeah, it should be a pretty good environment in there. I expect LSU to play much better than they did in College Station. They can't really play much worse than that. Hopefully they get KJ involved. They can double Castleton, limit him, and the Tigers can get a win. I actually will pick LSU to win the game tonight by a final score of 70-65. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Hopefully the Tigers get it done tonight.
The Kentucky Wildcats announced that Liam Cohen is returning to be the offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach. This reunion will spark the UK offense. Take it or leave it.
I'll leave it. Look, they were good 2 years ago with Cohen. It was Levis's first year. They threw it a little bit. Wandell Robinson was great, and I realize they've got Barry and Brown, who's a really good wide receiver. We'll see. Transfer quarterbacks, sometimes it takes, sometimes it doesn't. I'm just not going to bet on Kentucky offense all that often. I think that they do a pretty good job on defense, but I also think that their time is going to come to a close here under Mark Stoops. Not in a sense of firing, but in a sense of winning 10 games and whatnot. If Billy Napier can establish some sort of a pulse in Gainesville and Heupel keeps chugging along, I think that Kentucky will trickle back. I think that's reasonable. I think it's going to happen. Stoops is a good coach. He's done an excellent job there. They should keep him around for a long time. But if you can feast on terrible Tennessee programs, Florida's in a coaching transition in and out. They got no chance of beating Georgia anytime soon. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and say Kentucky falls back a little bit, and I'm not going to put all my stock in the Liam Cohen boat because it worked the last time.
Carlos Correa is headed back to the Minnesota Twins, the third team he's agreed to go to this offseason, on a 6-year, $200 million deal. Correa will actually sign with the Yankees or Dodgers over the next 2 weeks. Take it or leave it.
I'll leave it. I think they can figure this one out. They've dropped the number down about $150 million. They've knocked the years down like 7 years. So this is going to stick. It's a shorter-term deal. I want to know what in the world the Giants and the Mets found in this physical, in his ankle, that made him unsignable for that amount of money. I realize it's a business and you've got to do it, but what is going on with that ankle? Clearly the Twins were concerned about it as well. Scott Boras is his agent. He's still going to go and go and go. And he sat down with the Mets for a long time and tried to get it hammered out. And Steve Cohen doesn't appear to have any qualms about spending whatever amount of money it could possibly take, just getting every free agent he can possibly sign. He backed out on this thing and let the Twins swoop in and take him. I'm thrilled because now he's in the American League and I don't have to deal with it. But that has got to be some kind of a brutal physical for Carlos Correa to be turned down after agreeing to 2 separate deals with 2 of the biggest spending markets in baseball. We'll see how it works up there in Minnesota. But a $200 million deal for Carlos Correa. We all know Dansby Swanson's 10 times the player Carlos Correa is anyway, right? Clearly. It's my shortstop now on the north side of Chicago. That'll do it for Take It or Leave It. Want to remind you once again, we will be doing sports trivia tonight at Pluckers. I'll be at the basketball game. If the basketball game ends on time at 8 o'clock, we'll crank up at 8:30. If the basketball game goes 30 minutes over and we don't start till 9 o'clock, I'll be there at Pluckers at some point. Just hang out. Grab a team. If you're going to the PMAC, come on over. We'll be in the bar area at Pluckers having some fun with sports trivia. Or if you're a place to watch the game, you can watch the game at Pluckers and do some sports trivia after that. But I promise you, we will be there after the game goes final in the PMAC tonight. It's a 6 o'clock tip-off between LSU and Florida. 5:30 pregame show over to Eagle 98.1. It'll be Chris Blair and John Brady on the call for LSU and Florida. If you missed any of our show, you can catch it on demand, 1045ESPN.com, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube. Anywhere you find your audio, you can find us. Or if you find your video on YouTube, do a cool thing on YouTube. We have the full shows. They're all right there. But we also cut up a couple segments each and every day and put them there individually so they're quicker 10, 11-minute watches. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel, and you can get those daily. over on the Watch ESPN YouTube channel. On today's show, we opened up. I gave my thoughts on the state of college football after what we watched last night with TCU getting to the national championship game and being exposed on the national stage. If you want my thoughts on where college football should move moving forward, catch it at the top of the show. Then I discussed at 1:15 where Georgia is in the college football landscape and what we should look for moving forward. Glenn West of Go247 talked transfer portal on the football side and then a little basketball as well. Always enjoy those conversations, and I got you ready for a pretty mediocre night in SEC basketball tonight at the end of hour number 1. Top of hour number 2, I dove deep into the University of Florida's basketball team. A couple of guys that have experience playing against LSU, one in the NCAA tournament, one guy who played for LSU, and Alex Fudge, but I gave you some numbers and some personnel on LSU and Florida, as well as some keys to the game. LSU transfer portal football talk at 2:15, and Sharif Ishak talking Saints and Pels at 2:30. If any of that interests you, you can always catch it on demand, as I told you. Jimmy Ott's Game Time coming to you from 6 to 8 this evening. Matt Moscona is about to drive you home on After Further Review. Have a wonderful Tuesday. Go out to the PMAC, come out to Pluckers. Either way, we'll see you tomorrow, same time, same place, 1 to 3 on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.